Let's talk about this. Duke University is reversing its decision to let Muslim students use the iconic chapel bell tower for the Friday call to prayer. The weekly call was set to start today, and it's an unfamiliar sound on campus, a familiar sound, I should say, in this campus, very much in the Bible Belt. For some, though, it was unwelcome. All right, that is Franklin Graham. He's the son of evangelical icon Billy Graham. He'd encouraged donors to withhold funding in protest. A Duke official said this to explain the reversal.
The number and the tone of the call, just sort of random over the transom calls that were coming in, were pretty loud and pretty nasty.
I'm joined now by Young America Foundation spokeswoman Ashley Pratt, and we have Harris Zafar of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA. Thanks to both of you for coming on for what I hope is a really good discussion here. I want to ask you first, Ashley. You wrote a column, basically, opposing Duke's initial move to have the chapel bell used for the call to prayer. You said that the move seemed tilted against Judeo-Christian values. Explain why you think that.
Sure. Well, first of all, Young America's Foundation would have been in full support of this had we thought that it would expand religious freedom for all students on campus, but this was not the case and was very tilted against Judeo-Christian values, which Duke University has a long history of doing and cowering in the face of political correctness. They removed Chick-fil-A from campus once they received emails from students regarding same-sex marriage, obviously people who supported it on campus and wanted Chick-fil-A removed. Pro-life students had to cancel an event on campus because the Women's Center there wouldn't let them host it. And then the Palestinian Solidarity Movement National Conference was held at Duke in 2004, and that is very anti-Israel. So why are they only supporting religious freedom for some and not all students?
I want you to respond to that, Harris.
For us within the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, we were actually a bit surprised that Duke even allowed or agreed to this call to prayer on campus, because even within our youth association that's in college campuses around the country, we're never really pushing for this. So that really wasn't a story for me. Really the story became the rhetoric that we started hearing from the likes of Franklin Graham really sounded more like an American Taliban more than anything else, because of all the anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim sentiment that we started to hear. If Duke University at the very first request said, sorry, we can't do this, for me, I would have brushed it off, no big deal. For me, the story here is that under the pressure of those who are saying to no longer give funding to Duke, even though they continually have Christian services, they use the bell on a daily basis, that to somehow vilify us as being butchers, like he said we're rapists, that we behead Christians, that's not the correct view of Islam, and that's what we want to confront.
And I want to throw some statistics out there just so we know. There are 700 Muslim students at Duke University of about 14,000. And then just so you know what we're talking about, this chapel bell is used, I believe, daily. It's used, I think, at the beginning and the end of Christian services there. It's used for special occasions. And what we're talking about was using the bell once a week, right, for Friday prayers.
Every Friday.
Every Friday, a call to prayer on that very important day in the Muslim religion. So I want to talk about some of what Franklin Graham said. He did more, Ashley, than just encourage donors to withhold funds. He also made some controversial statements on social media, including this Facebook post. He said, as Christianity is being excluded from the public square and followers of Islam are raping, butchering, and beheading Christians, Jews, and anyone who doesn't submit to their Sharia Islamic law, Duke is promoting this in the name of religious pluralism. I mean, when I listen to that, I don't think that that's very unifying language. That seems to be painting with one brush Muslims and then extremists who are, depending on who you ask, fundamentalist Muslims or are Islamists posing as Muslims.
Well,
so what do you think about his language?
Right. That's entirely true there, that, you know, the extremist sect of Islam there. And the issue is those things are happening. But what I would also like to point out is under Sharia law, a lot of women don't have freedoms. So the thing I would really like to draw attention to here is the PC police, the political correctness people, always come out and say that there's a war on women going on. So why weren't they here saying something about Sharia law, for example, and how they're restrictive of any women's freedoms under that? Because that's entirely true. And that's not the extremist Islam. That is all Islam and under Sharia law. So while his comments were controversial to some, they also shed light on the fact that, you know, it isn't freedom for all under Islam, and only allowing this to happen for Muslim students, but not allowing the Lord's Prayer to be said on campus, which I'm sure the PC police would come out for that. It just seems very unbalanced on that campus. And it's just something that, yes, they can feel free to pray, and yes, they should be able to exercise their freedom, you know, to practice their religion, just as the Christian students should be able to. But this just seemed, you know, absolutely unfair to me that they would allow this to happen every Friday and have it be broadcast from the Christian bell tower on campus.
All right, Harris, I want you to respond to that.
Absolutely. No, this is exactly the conversation we need to have. This conversation about Islam needs to be in the public square because of this rhetoric about what Sharia law is and is not. Luckily,
well, why don't you
no
tell
one
me
in
how
America
I, as a woman,
is
shouldn't be offended by that?
I do respect you, Ashley, and that's why I didn't cut you off at all. And that's why, I mean, when people say that when Sharia law is oppressive to women, I mean, I'd invite you to read the entire chapter I dedicated in my book on Sharia law, because we push back and confront those governments, which is why I call out Franklin Graham, and I would welcome a public debate with him to talk about what is Sharia law. Does Islam advocate for the oppression of women? If it did, my wife would not have chosen to be a member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. So let's have this dialogue. I asked Mr. Graham to meet us in the public square so that we can have this rational dialogue around what is Sharia. We're not asking for Sharia to take over the U.S. Constitution. We're actually asking for pluralism, a separation of religion and state. The Sharia is not meant to be legislated as a government, and that's why we oppose countries like Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Afghanistan, in what Iran does on blasphemy cases and oppression of women. We oppose that. We're your partners, not your enemies.
Well, that's great to hear, but would you support the Lord's Prayer being said on campus every day or every Friday?
If Duke University allows Muslims to have a call to prayer, I would absolutely ask that the Jews be allowed to light the menorah whenever they want, to have the Lord's Prayer recited, to continue to ring the bells every day at 5 p.m. and before and after service every Sunday, like they already do. They already have Pathways, a program for counseling Christians. So all the Christian services they already offer, please continue that. Allow
Great.
Jews
so
to
do you
also
think it
come
was
into
fair
the
to hold
circle.
My friends, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave the conversation there, although I know that you guys could debate this for hours.
All day.
Really appreciate you being here, Ashley Pratt and Harris Zafar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.